quickly remove. We're going to, I want to do a few of the broad elements. I want to touch on something from the Targum Sheni, which is a Targum that was written on the Megillah that fills in a lot of the story and fleshes things out dramatically, because the Megillah is written in a very concise way. So the Targum, which is called Targum Sheni, it was written sometime not that much after the writing of the Megillah itself, but we're not sure exactly when it was written. It really provides a remarkable vantage point into the Megillah. So we'll do a little bit of that. We'll do a little bit of the perspectives on Purim from the overall view of Yahadut, from a little bit of the Kabbalistic view of Yahadut, and then we'll start to dig into the Megillah itself. So we start with a well-known perspective on Purim, which is Purim lo yebatel la'atid lavo u'megillat Esther tikra lanetzach, that the Megillah of Purim will never be canceled, will never be pushed aside, and the holiday of Purim will always be kept. Now, why is this a surprise? What do we know about some of the other holidays and some of the other books?
They're from Hashem. They're I mean, they're directly from Hashem versus from the rabbis, right?
Right. So this holiday is from the rabbis, and the Megillah was written by Esther and Mordechai, as we know. But for some reason, we're going to talk about what those reasons might be. Other holidays will be minimized in terms of focus. Other books are going to be minimized or put aside. And this holiday and this little book is going to stay forever and ever. And when will those other pieces be minimized? They'll be minimized with Biat HaMashiach, that kufa of Mashiach. When it matures somewhat, the world will be a different place. Certain things will be more ignored, and we'll talk about what those are in a minute. Other things will remain in terms of priority and centrality to Judaism, and this will be one of them. So let's start with that premise. Purim has this remarkable status. Now, if you remember the beginning, the first Mishnah in Masechet Megillah, we have an element of this, a component of this, which is that the Megillah is read on several different days. The Megillah could be read on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th of the month. And we talk about in the Gemara how the core holiday, as you know, is on the 14th. The holiday for Shushan, and we back into that, walled cities becomes on the 15th. But we create.
It says that, right? If you're in a small enough city where they don't meet every day for prayers, you would do it on the closest Monday or Thursday because they get together to read the Torah. So you would do it then.
Perfect, Zach. Now, so the question to you becomes as follows: why didn't we do this for any other holidays? What's the concern here? The concern is that if people are not brought in on the Yom Kiddush, as you said, on the Monday and Thursday, if they're not brought in from the small villages, then they may not keep it, right? That's one of the opinions. The other opinion is even more interesting in my opinion, which is that the day of Purim was a very important business day for the people in the villages. And they needed to sell their wares to the people from the cities. They came to the cities and they sold their wares on those days for the people to give their mishloach manot, to make their seudot. And if we obligated them to keep Purim on the same day that the people in the cities were keeping Purim, they would lose their business day. It's a great one. All right, one more time. The first approach is, hi Abe, good morning, Shavua Tov. The first approach is that the reason that we allow Purim to be above time, not limited by time, is because we're concerned that the people from the Kfarim who may or may not be able to read, they may or may not be able to read, and therefore they may not get it done. So we're going to allow them to ignore the din of lotit godadu, which means you can't go out and do what you want with the halacha. We're going to allow them to ignore that, and we're going to say that if Purim, for example, starts on, hi Stephen, good morning. If Purim starts on Tuesday, we can move it to them for Monday. Now, why don't we do something simpler? Why don't we just send someone into the Kfar and let him read for them, right? The way your sister does, scores of people, right? Why don't we just send someone to the Kfar and let that person read for them? Wouldn't that be easier? The answer is maybe, but the fundamental element, when you really dig deep a little bit, is Purim was a very important business day for these villagers. They needed the income. It was one of the biggest days of the year for them. And therefore, the rabbis allowed this to happen. Again, it's pretty remarkable and it's spectacular, but it's based on something. In other words, why didn't they do this on other days? Why didn't they do it on other days? Could it, yeah, is he?
Usually, I've heard often that the fact that it's a hidden miracle is the reason why we constantly learn this and take lessons from it, that we have to look at everything in life as the potential for a hidden miracle rather than looking for the obvious ones. We talked during the week about how miracles may be more obvious in Yemot HaMashiach, but we put the value and the power in the daily, everyday miracle. So that's something we hear often. I'm hearing you say that we would also give it all this extra strength because it is the Rabbanan.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm following.
Excellent. Because it's a D'Rabbanan, we have to give it more firepower because
which is usually the opposite, you think, right? You give exclusions because the Rabbanan.
Excellent, beautiful, perfect. So because it's a D'Rabbanan, we're going to give it the firepower because the message is so important. So because the message is very important, as declared by the rabbis, and because the message is very important and it's rabbinical, it may not be considered as important, and therefore we're going to do something with it that we don't do for anything else. Now, very interesting questions come up, which we'll talk about another time, God willing. Who reads the Megillah for them on Monday? Zach, when they come in for Yom HaKinus on Monday, who's going to read the Megillah? Right? Stephen, we talked about this, right? Stephen and I started Masechet Megillah together. Who's going to read the Megillah?
I don't know.
Tell me, what are the issues one way or the other?
Is there a bracha?
Beautiful. Of course there is.
Wow.
So now what do you want to do? Chacham Ezra, what's the problem?
I'm just trying to follow the line of reasoning. I'm thinking maybe the person that reads Torah is also not obligated or cannot read the Megillah.
He's not obligated. Yeah, Stephen?
What was the question? Sorry, I was switching over.
The question is, if the Bnei HaKefarim come in on the Yom Kinus, which is Monday, and they come into the city on Monday and read on Monday, right? Who's reading for them? The person from the city.
From the city.
But he's not obligated. He can't read. He's not allowed.
Well, why can't they have one of them read for themselves?
Okay, very good. Then that's what we have to do. But we have to deal with the question, because the question teaches us another something. In other words, the movement here is exclusive to the Bnei Kefarim, to the people of the villages. And the person from the city can't be mitzaref, he can't move over to their special privilege. He's holding what he's holding.
So I get that they want to emphasize that you can move over like for the rulings, but like why can't they just have someone from the village read for themselves?
No, in the village itself.
Oh no, I'm saying they go to the city.
Yeah, look, if somebody could read in the village, read in the village, then you're okay, right? But then the other question comes in of, well, 1 second, if they read in the villages, and celebrate in the villages, and they're not in the cities, then they're going to lose out on a very important day of business. And the rabbis didn't want them to do that. So we might say that the reason is that there may have not been a minyan. Send people there. You have enough people in the big city, send people to the small village, make a minyan for them, let somebody read for them on the day itself. So the reason that the problem could be that they can't read, which is possible, or they don't have enough men for a minyan, which is possible, that could have been solved by not creating this remarkable thing of moving the holiday back and forth, right? So the reason, the most probable reason why the rabbis allowed this unique privilege in this case is because the people in the villages needed this day to make a living. And it was a critical day for them because they would come into the cities on the actual day of Pesach, of Purim, and they would do business. And if they were encumbered, so to speak, by the halachot of the day, they wouldn't have been able to do so. It's great. It's great. I mean, it's hard to digest because we're so firm, it's hard to digest. But you know what? The rabbis cared about this. And it was very important to them that people wouldn't be hurt. But you have to go back one step. The reason why this is allowed altogether, why don't we do it with any other holiday? Why don't we do it with Pesach, right? Didn't they lose out then? Weren't people in Jerusalem shopping? Right? When they came, they made Aliyah Regel. Weren't they there? Sure they were. Why didn't we do it for Hanukkah? Because
Was there any holidays that happened after this chronologically?
Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Okay. So why don't we do it for any of the other ones? Why? Because Purim is Purim is Purim is Purim. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. And it has some elements to it that nothing else has. Not Pesach, not anything, okay? And we're going to
saying that because they give all these allowances, it's more important rather than people saying
the other way.
Stricter.
Go the other way, Izzy.
It's stricter. The laws are stricter because I don't follow. Please.
They give all the allowances because of it's so special of a holiday and what happened.
Yeah, because the holiday is Me'al Hazman, is above time, and will not be compromised by the passage of time, even when we get to the ultimate time, which is the time of Mashiach, because the holiday sits in this remarkable non-time bound place, and it's the only one we can move it from one day to the other because time isn't the defining element of this holiday.
But it seems to me that they're also putting Parnassah above it, which is rare also.
Right. That's right. That's right. And you see this a lot in Halacha. You see it a lot, where you see that there's be a back and forth between the rabbis, and the ultimate decision will be made based on, is this reasonable for the people from a financial point of view? Are we going to overly encumber the people? Are we going to hurt this category of people? It's spectacular. It's a spectacular perspective because it really shows the honesty of halakha. Trying to think of a quick case. Okay, something will come to mind. Good. Okay, so the mivneh is as follows. Purim is ma'al hazman. Purim sits in a separate place in the reality of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Drop down. Because it does, at the end of time, when everything is moved to a different level as a result of our awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as turbocharged by the Mashiach, some things will fall away because we won't need them anymore. We'll always already be on that level of awareness. So, for example, some of the rabbis say that the Nevi'im and Ketubim, right, the Sefer Yoshua, Shir HaShirim, on and on, right, other than Megillat Esther, they'll be put in the Genizah. They'll be put in the Genizah. That's the opinion of the Rambam, right? that we're going to put them in the Genizah. The Ra'avad says we're not going to put them in the Genizah, but we're going to stop reading them in public. Anything other than the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, 5 books of Moshe, right? And the Torah Shebe'al Peh, all the other 19 books, all the other 18 books other than Megillat Esther, the other 18 books of Nach will be studied po v'sham here and there, but won't be read in public anymore. So you won't have the Haftarot and these things read anymore. Pretty amazing. We won't be teaching them in the schools anymore. The Al-Sheikh HaKadosh says a fantastic reason. He says, other than what the lessons that we learned from Megillat Esther, everything that's brought in the other 18 books of Nach is hinted at in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, in the 5 books of the core Torah, the written Torah. And when we get to the time of Mashiach, our level of clarity and intellectual capacity will be elevated to a point where we're going to see everything that any other Navi said in the Chumash itself. No? Lost you? Hello? Let's start again. Let's do it again.
What would be in the Chumash?
The Al-Sheikh says like this. He says, true. In the time of Mashiach, Yoshua, Shoftim, Sefer Shemuel, Malachi, Yirmiyah, Yeshaya, Sia, we're not gonna learn them anymore. Why? Why does the Al-Sheikh say? He says because everything that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu told the Navi, that the Navi subsequently wrote in those books, is in the original 5 books of the Torah Shebichtav. We're just not on the level now to see it. When Mashiach comes, we will have grown intellectually and spiritually, right? The pendulum moves. We said now the pendulum is probably 50-50, 50 physical and 50 spiritual intellectual. It was adjusted a little bit after the expulsion from Gan Eden, or depending on the opinion, or after the Mabul. So what happens with Mashiach? We move just a drop. We go from 50-50 to 51 spiritual, 49 physical, and everything changes. Because now we have a level of access to the spiritual, intellectual that we don't have, even though we're 1 degree away. And therefore, the Al-Sheikh says, all the books that we have to help us get closer to God, all these 18 books that we learn from, that we grow from, that we get insights from, and so on, will no longer be needed because we're on a different level intellectually, spiritually, and we can glean all that knowledge from the 5 books of Moshe Rabbeinu.
But why not Megillat Esther?
And Megillat Esther. That's the only other one we don't give up. So, question is why?
Is Rashi still going to be learned?
Is what?
Rashi.
Yeah, all the yes, beautiful. All the Mefarshim will still be used, but the canon is going to shrink. Either you hold that the canon is going to shrink in a very overt sense, that these books are going to go off the shelf, as some opinions say, as Rambam says, right? You can't ignore what the Rambam says. Or you hold that they're going to stay on the shelf and be downgraded, or you hold that they're going to stay on the shelf and be forgotten, because you need not go there. And the truth, what the Al-Sheikh is saying, it makes so much sense. Why would you think that everything is not in here? Why would make us think that it's not in there? The only thing that makes us think that it's not in there is that we have so many other words of God to deal with. But if we have reached the intellectual place where we can discover them in the Chumash itself, oh, that's what we're talking about. Sounds like fun, no?
I have very limited knowledge of the Nevi'im besides what we've been doing. So 18 canonized books I'm very not familiar with. besides at a macro level.
We're just getting
But what we
warmed up.
have learned,
Just getting warmed up, is it?
inshallah. But what my accumulation of knowledge at this point in the Nevi'im is basically them helping us avoid pitfalls in the future and prophesizing, obviously, Yemot HaMashiach, and also talking about how sinners, what's going to happen to them versus Hachamim. Is it have something to do with that the truth was then shown and everything that was used to keep the Jews on the derech and allow us to know that prophecy Hashem is still with us is no longer necessary because they weren't because then it's reality? Does that have something?
That has a lot to do with it. Beautiful. That's beautifully put. Has a lot to do. Has a lot to do with it. It's very important, for example, that with God's help, with God's help, we should really try to do some of the early Nevi'im, particularly Shemuel, Aleph and Bet is very, very, very important sefer. And some of the later Nevi'im, at least parts of Yeshaya, at least parts of Yirmiyah, but it's along the lines of what you're saying. And we have another very important point to your point. We touched on this in other discussions. We don't learn halakha from the Navi. We don't learn halakha. We learn meser. We learn life lessons. We don't learn halakha. So the life lessons that we will need, that we had needed the Navi to teach, like you said, we got them already. Now I want to mention something else. In parks in Israel, when you go to some parks, I may have mentioned this before. Abe, you've probably seen this because you're there very often. Very often, they'll have a stone where there's a dedication to a person, right? The park was dedicated by somebody in honor and memory, whatever it might be. And there's very often another stone, the book of Zechariah, which says that there will come a time when the very elderly men and women of Jerusalem will walk in the parks, will walk completely dependent on their walking sticks, i.e., the Navi is talking about a period of time after the destruction of the temple, right? He's talking about a period of time that will come back in the future when the very, very elderly who barely can walk will be walking through the streets of Jerusalem. What does that mean? It means it's safe. It means it's vibrant. It means an elderly person can be supported there. It's mind-blowing because the city was in flames, right? And then he writes, and boys and girls will be playing in her parks. When you read it, you just start to cry. You can't do anything else. Because when the Navi said it and people heard it, they wanted to throw these guys in jail. They wanted to put them in insane asylums, right? How can you possibly say something so crazy, right? Look where we are. The people have been slaughtered. The people have been raped. They're being paraded to these foreign countries and sold as slaves, right? We have nothing. So, to your point, Izzy, the reason that we will stop reading some of these things is A, they don't have halakha, and we need halakha. That we must always be getting. B, a number of the prophecies will be reality. It'll be reality. So we hope to see it in our time.
Yes.
Going back to Purim, the Al-Sheikh says that the Megillah and the Chag of Purim is Ma'al Azman, and whatever will be known or gleaned from the Chumash itself in substitution for the other books cannot, nothing in the Chumash can replace what's in the Megillah, and nothing that we celebrate can replace the holiday of Purim in terms of the awareness that it brings us. Yeah.
From this canon of our Tanakh, is there many other lessons that we can learn about the power of women? Obviously, Ruth, and there's a bunch of others, but I feel as such a powerful Megillah and lessons to learn about the power of the women in our lives.
That's right.
Are there any others that really stress this? Could it be that that's a reason why we want to make sure that it's always read?
I think certainly an important thing. To your point, Stephen, we didn't get up to this yet in Masechet Megillah, but we will soon. Masechet Megillah lists the most significant Nevi'im, men and women. The women Nevi'im, the women prophets, are very, very important to study. They're very important to study because, you know, a woman inherently has, by design, has a slightly different approach to life than a man, by design. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu empowered certain men to be prophets and certain women. So to your point, Izzy, it's very, very important to understand the female giants in Judaism, no less important than understanding the male giants, because through them we understand life, you know. So Megillat Esther is obscure in its in what it offers us on Esther. We're going to touch on more than the Megillah offers on its surface. Okay, it's somewhat obscure. You know, you look at the prophecies of Devorah and a few others, you see more of the person. But to your point, we can and will, God willing, because I hope to do Megillah today, Friday and Sunday, God willing. Today, coming Friday and Sunday. I want to try and get a really much more in-depth understanding of Esther. And God willing, we have the opportunity to study some of the other Nevi'im. We should certainly put a focus to the female Nevi'im, who are very, very important for us. Okay. I want to read, yeah. We're good? No, you're good, honey? Everybody okay? All right. Abe? Cool? You all right? Okay, great. I want to, now the Targum Sheni, we're going to be touching on it here and there. As I mentioned, it's a very fleshed out description of what happened. I want to read something from it. It may be available in English. I apologize. I didn't have a chance to see if it is, but it's Targum, Targum, Sheni. If it's available in English, if it can be downloaded, it's very, very important and very valuable. I don't know, my book that I'm bringing it from is old, but it's been reprinted a gazillion times. I just don't know these days if it's available in English, but I'll look, if you could please look, and if we can find it, it's very valuable. What it does, as I mentioned, is it fleshes things out dramatically because the Megillah is extremely concise. So I want to read you, I'll read it in Hebrew and explain it quickly, the language that the Targum ascribes to the decree that Ahasuerus sent out. Now, have something in mind. The original expulsion, as prophesied by the Nevi'im, was supposed to be 70 years, not more, right? We were supposed to be expelled to Bavel for 70 years and then come home. That was the prophecy. Let's say 67 or so years have gone by at this point, and there's absolutely zero salvation in sight. Zero. Nothing is happening. We're going to talk about more in depth, the starting of the building of the Beit HaMikdash, the second one, the stopping of the building, but nothing is happening, right? So you're at the very end of what, and this is the first galut in 1,200 years. Remember, they came from Egypt. We had approximately, not 1,200 years, 800 years. We had approximately 400 years of the Mishkan. We had approximately 400 years of Bayit Sheni. So we lived in the land of Israel for 800 years, and now you have this expulsion from the land. The 70 years that are supposed to be the extent of this punishment have been mostly burned through, and there's no salvation in sight. right?
So this is about what, 140 AD? Or
About no, it's no, it's no, it's not AD. We're talking First Temple.
so it's 70 years after of the Babylonian exile.
That's
Got it. Thank you. Okay.
So I'm showing it's about 362, 370 BCE.
I thought that a second. I made a mistake. Thank you.
Okay, so this is how the Targum ascribes the decree that Ahasuerus sent down. Mimeni Hamelach Ahasuerus, from me myself, King Ahasuerus, B'chol ha'amim hagoyim b'lashonot ha'yoshvim b'chol artzenu, shlomchem yidbeh, to all the nations, in all the languages, in all my countries that I control, my city-states that I control, your peace should be abundant. Yibada lachem, it should be known to you. Ki ba elenu ish echad, lo mimkomenu, lo ma'artzenuhu. It should be known to you that an ish, a great man, came to us, not from our lands, not from our countries. Vayavod hitosef banu ditkaber al sonenu. And the reason he came, Ahasuerus tells his 127 mini kings to tell their people, is for us to make us stronger and to beat our enemies. Hakanu oto, we looked into him, we investigated him. Vahaman Shemo, and his name is Aman, ben Agag HaMelech, ben Amalek HaGadol, the son of Agag, the son of the great Amalek, ben Reuel, ben Eliphaz, Bechor Esav. He is the son of Reuel, of Eliphaz, the oldest of Esav. Everybody knows Esav, right? The son of Yaakov. Everybody knows Esav. Ben Alufim, Ba'alei Nechasim, Bashirei Aratzot. He's a man of great stature. He has great ownership and possessions, and he's of the wealthy man of the countries. He asked me a very simple question, a very simple, easy to answer, short question, he says. He told me about the Jews, on what they do, on their practices, and that they're no good. And he told me, he told me that when they left Egypt, there were 60,000 men, 600,000 men, sorry. And he told me he'll give me 600,000 coins, one for each of the men who originally left Egypt. And I agreed to sell this nation to the slaughter. And now I'm telling you, as your king, I'm very happy about this. And my heart is very happy with this, very content. I took the money and I agreed, I sold him these people that he should murder them and slaughter them. He tells his people in this original proclamation, Ichluna, ushtuna, v'simchu. Eat, drink, have a great time. The same way ani ochel v'shoteh v'sameach, that I'm eating and drinking and I'm very happy. Ha'ochez b'keshet yochazena, v'sholef b'cherev yishalfena. Those who have the spears, grab your spears and hold them. Those who have swords, grab your swords. Go out and do your doings with them on the 13th and 14th of Adar. Don't care about their leaders. And not on their dignitaries, and not on their distinguished, and not on their children. Kill them and take their all of their possessions, every man for himself. Because this came from me, your king, and it's going to every nation, to every place, to every city-state, to every tribe, to every family, to every city. Asher yimsa sham eved Yehudi or Amma Yehudit, where there is a slave or a slave girl who's Jewish. Yishhatu sarehem al sha'arei ha'ir ha'u. You should slaughter them and put them on the gates of every city. Put their dead bodies on the gates of every city. Ya'an asher lo kiblu gzerat hamelech, because they don't live the way I decreed them to live. By the way, it's completely baseless, right? Reminds you of Paro, reminds you of Hitler, same thing. V'ani Achashverosh chafetz shelo yimatzeh Yehudi al pnei eretz malchuti. And I, Achashverosh, declare that there will not be a single Jew found in my area of rulership. Now,
Did Achashverosh write this or Haman wrote it?
Huh?
I said it, thank you.
He said that. This is the quote of what Achashverosh supposedly said at the party.
no, actually, it's a quote of what he sent out in his decree to slaughter the Jews.
And was it completely authored by him, or was it like co-authored by Haman and signed off by him like a typical politician?
It's a great question, because some people say that Achashverosh was incredibly stupid, and Haman, really, this was all a Haman thing. And the Gemara though lists that the term "hu" used before the term Achashverosh, the term "hu" used before a name denotes notoriety. Either it denotes notoriety to the positive, the greatest people of all time, or it denotes notoriety to the negative. Stephen, we'll see this in the Gemara, God willing. Or it denotes notoriety to the negative. So the term "hu" is used before the name Achashverosh, which our rabbis call and say, he's the Rasha. He's the guy. Don't blame it on Haman. He went ahead and he destroyed the lineage of Nebuchadnezzar, and he took over the kingdom. He was a nothing, and it was calculated. And he moved the capital city to Shushan, and he consolidated his power. So some people say Achashverosh was an idiot and was just manipulated by Haman, and other people say absolutely not. The "hu" Achashverosh, because we know the term "hu" when it's used before the name of someone in very great notoriety, is meant to proclaim their evil or their sidkut or their righteousness.
Also, isn't there an idea that Esther had to restrain herself from pointing at Achashverosh when she pointed at Haman at the party, because she knew that Achashverosh was really evil as well?
Say that one more time. One more time.
At the party, the second party that she had with Haman, Achashverosh, and herself, when she pointed at Haman and said, he's the person who's trying to kill my people, she originally pointed at Achashverosh, and an angel moved her hand to point at Haman because she knew Achashverosh.
I never heard that. It's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful idea. Could be.
I don't remember where I heard it, but I've heard it before.
It's a beautiful idea. I haven't heard it, but it's very nice.
So that's always what I based my idea on, that Achashverosh was really liable and Haman wasn't as powerful as we might think. Or he was still very powerful, but Achashverosh was really involved.
Absolutely liable, and the Gemara would hold that same perspective. And the writer of this Targum clearly is writing that same perspective, right? That Achashverosh was absolutely culpable. Go drink and eat and be merry the way I am, and take their dead bodies and hang them on the gates of the cities. This is what he proclaimed. Now, when was this proclaimed vis-a-vis when it was meant to be implemented? It was proclaimed in the first few days of Nisan, month of Nisan. Now, this takes place about 5 years after he takes Esther. So you have Vashti is executed. About a year goes by. The virgins are brought in that whole story. Esther, he marries Esther, and about 5 years into that is when this happens. Okay, so set that in your mind as a frame of time. So now from Nisan to Adar is how many months? It's 11 months, right? We're in Adar now, and we'll be in Nisan next month. So this decree goes out. It's unequivocal, right? The Nazis took over, so to speak, right? Nobody has any control over that. And the populations are ecstatic. The Targum brings stories of Jewish people going to their non-Jewish neighbors, pleading with them to house them and not to kill them. And they laugh at them. So this is really horrifically and a playbook of what Hitler picks up on. In fact, I don't remember exactly, you would probably know better, but what was it with the Eichmann trial or one of the other trials where they said they
Purim party.
Yeah, when was it? Which one was it?
Before one of them got slaughtered, before one of them got killed, he said
Purim Fest, was it?
Purim Fests in a year.
Yeah. So there's, these are recurring situations. So for our perspective today, because unfortunately we're limited in time, I have to get to that levaya. We need to understand that Purim is Ma'al Hazman. Purim, the message of Purim is so essential in forming us, remains essential even after Mashiach comes, even after we're overwhelmingly developed and grown and elevated to a place very close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Torah and ourselves. The messages of Purim and Megillat Esther remain. That's point A. The extension of that is the ability for it to be Ma'al Hazman and to be moved from one time to another. The second very important point here is that the attempt to destroy the Jewish people was absolutely complete. It was catastrophic. And any of that, because I've seen things written over the years where they play this down and they say, oh, Achashverosh was a fool. And based on the first decree he sent out declaring all men being the masters of their homes, people knew that this was a joke. It's all nonsense. It's absolute unadulterated nonsense. They were in an absolute state of fear and with no place to go. Like the European Jews had no place to go. They had no place to go. They got on boats and were sent back. They had no place to go. These people had no place to go. There was nothing. This was cataclysmic. And our rabbis write, for good reason, that the threat of Achashverosh was much worse than the threat of Paro. Much worse. Paro wanted to enslave us. He didn't want to exterminate us. Achashverosh wanted extermination. Enslaving wasn't.
I didn't think about it.
A child's game. So, against that backdrop, we're going to learn and understand more. Now, I want you to just think about a couple of things till we learn again, God willing. I want you to think about the following. A moed, or a holiday, a moment in time, is defined by its mitzvot, right? So we have the handful of mitzvot that are related to Purim. The mitzvot define how a person should grow and change as a result of having the privilege to enjoy that holiday. Yeah, again, a moed or a chag is defined by the mitzvot. The mitzvot are what our charge is. The demand on us is to grow as a result of being able to say Shehayanu and thank God for giving us life to enjoy, to celebrate this holiday again. Therefore, I want you to please think about the mitzvot that we have for this holiday. Think about how the mitzvot help define the crisis that was, the resolution that became, the salvation that became, and what's essential for us to take out of the mitzvot, to change from as a result of doing those mitzvot, to move more in the direction that the crisis that was put on the Babylonians and all other Jews in the world as we know it at that time will never come to us. Those are the things we need to think about. Otherwise, have a light and easy Sunday.
Rabbi, I finished the book, so I'd love to teach a class based on it.
Okay.
The Big Bang and Genesis and the Big Bang, that book.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fantastic. Okay. How long do we need? How much time do we need? For the
I
call?
don't know. It was a long book, so we'll see how
Okay.
long it takes.
No,
Can
one
we-
second.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very exciting. So, okay, so you're already on for Fridays,
Yeah,
right?
should I do it the first Friday? Could I do a recap of this book?
Would you rather do that and then start the other?
I think so.
You're on.
Great.
All right.
Of what it is.
So this
Maybe you
comes
should
Friday.
write. Maybe
Yeah,
you should-
yeah. I'll send a text on the chat telling everyone what I'm going to be doing that this Friday, so maybe some people will join because Zeke seemed very interested.
Incredible. Great. All right.
Sounds
Noah,
good.
great to see you, honey. We missed you.
Good to see you too.
Good things. Good things, everybody. Great.
Thank you.
Shavua
Thank you.
tov.
Shavua
Have a great
tov.
day.